Gold deliveries, interesting chart here. COMEX depository warehouse gold stocks. It kind of reminds me of the US debt clock almost, just going vertical at this point. Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with
Was
you
that
for
the joke?
Arcadia Economics. Kranzler, you can't even wait for the intro. I gave him a joke right before we started. And I still got him chuckling, which as I go on, realize is a big part of being a gold and silver investor. I think the ending is easy enough to see, but perhaps making it fun and getting through the days when the price is down, and just counting on Jerome Powell, Ben Bernanke, and the gang to take care of the rest, because as you can see, I'm joined as always by Denver Dave Kranzler. Dave, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
I'm good. I was worried that you were, still stunned that Jerome Powell is going to wait for 3 more lunar equinoxes before even. The best part was that he said not only is he not thinking about raising rates, he's not thinking about raising rates.
Did he really say that?
That's what I read in CNBC, CNBS as they call it. Who knows? But before we get into meaningful stuff such as gold and silver, any thoughts about the statement? I think you, at least as a means of deficit reduction, we should just use the Bernanke statements and press conferences because they all say the same thing, and we could save a couple bucks there. But any comments by you, sir, on this week's Fed meeting?
On this week's what?
Fed meeting.
Me? No. I mean, there no surprise there. I mean, essentially, the Fed said, and Powell in his presser base used the term, we'll provide forceful monetary stimulus. That's a paraphrase, but he used the word forceful, whatever that means. I mean, I feel like I'm being forcibly raped by the Fed, but
I can only imagine what Steve Leisman's reaction must have been with the insertion of forceful.
Well, that wasn't in the policy statement. That was in Powell's presser. I mean, here's the thing about that. Now the Fed's stance is you need to have a liquid functioning financial system in order to have a healthy economy. And that's a bunch of bullshit. You need a healthy economy to foster a healthy financial system, right? Let productivity and real wealth output determine what level of financeability the system has. And if you're not on a fractional banking system, which is the Achilles heel of every economic system, or one of the main Achilles heels, one of two, we wouldn't be in this situation that we're in. And all that money that the Fed's printing, that's going 2 places. Keep the banks from collapsing because they're choking on subprime assets, and to finance new treasury issuance. Now, to circle back to deficit reduction, why do we have a spending deficit? I propose what they should do is eliminate the income tax. It's not a legal law. It's not written anywhere. Go comb the Constitution. There's no law that says there is a tax on income. There's a tax on profits. And that's what the Constitution says. So why even have an income tax? Just abolish the income tax and print money. Just MMT on steroids and LSD. What's the difference? It's almost what they're doing right now.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually been learning recently, apparently the IRS isn't even technically a part of the government. I hear it's a private corporation. And also funny when you think about it. Huh?
I don't know about that. I don't really care. I'm just saying, what's the point of taxing us if you can just print money and pay for government debt issuance?
And plus,
or just print money and give it to the government, and they don't even issue debt, and the government spends that. How is that any different than what they're doing right now? Someone tell me that. Get bald Steve Leisman on here with his flipboard and his notes and his, his sweat pouring down his forehead, and have him explain to me how what they're doing now is any different than just eliminating the income tax, and the Fed just prints money, gives it to the government spends it. And also the Fed prints money and gives it to the banks so they don't collapse.
Next week's show is going to be video coverage of a tennis or boxing match between you and Steve Leisman.
I don't want a boxing match. Get him on this show and I'll dance circles around him. The guy's doesn't even have an economics degree or an MBA. We'll journalist.
Easy, Tiger. We'll leave that aside.
I wouldn't call him a journalist. All he does is report. He regurgitates.
Well, come on. Let's save some of
the teleprompt for him. And he pretends like he's doing analysis and he reads the teleprompter. That's Steve Leisman.
Let's save some of the venom for the IRS and that whole racket. I also find it interesting how you basically have arguably the greatest run of productivity in human history, the 100 years or so before the IRS came along. So when people wonder, are we staying alive because people are collecting taxes? I would say that is not.
The IRS came into existence, I believe, 1919. You can look it up. And that was right, that 6 years after the Fed came into existence.
Yep.
There's a fantastic documentary on YouTube. It's free, called From Freedom to Fascism. And Aaron Russo wrote and produced it. People may know him. He produced the movie Trading Places and the movie The Rose. Super bright guy. Unfortunately, he passed in his 60s, too young to cancer. But everyone should watch that documentary, and then let me know what you think about the IRS and the income tax.
Yeah, it's a great documentary. We're looking into if you can live stream a movie or something like that. Other assorted activities we have planned here at Arcadia. One last question about the Fed, though. And by the way, we'll have G. Edward Griffin on the show sometime in June.
That's fantastic.
So
that guy is bright and he knows his history.
Yeah, I'm actually starting to review Creature from Jekyll Island, so that will be fun.
Must read for anyone who invests in precious metals. Must read.
Yep. So connecting all those things that you just mentioned there, I guess I've gone on record and said it. I'm wondering if you would agree. I will guarantee the Fed never raises interest rates to any substantial, meaningful level under this current economic system because I don't think they can. It would destroy the whole system. Are you in agreement with that?
Well, if they raise the Fed funds rate, the market's going to ignore it anyway. You'll still have 1 month T-bill rates below the Fed funds rate because they're flooding the system with economy. It's the economy, the system with printed money. It's a simple supply and demand equation. You want to lower the cost of money, print more money, and the demand for that money isn't there except from the banks so they can stay solvent. Yeah. Go ahead and raise rates. It's not going to do anything because the market will be low because you got an oversupply of fiat currency and you've got a systemically weak economy. In fact, some would argue that depression-like economic activity right now, which is probably the case.
Yeah.
So will they ever raise interest rates? I don't know. Like I said, it's not going to matter whether they do or not. We're at zero until the dollar collapses.
Well, I agree with you there. Something that you have been talking about on the show recently and looking forward to getting an update would be the gold deliveries. Interesting chart here. COMEX depository warehouse gold stocks. It kind of reminds me of the U.S. debt clock almost, just going vertical at this point, but was hoping you could update us. Again, you're the expert on this. Would you say that we're in unprecedented territory with what we're seeing here?
I'd have to go back and look at the data, but since I've been involved in this sector since 2001. I mean, COMEX has never reported that size of inventory. You know, we were told that there was a shortage of gold just 8 weeks ago. So where are they getting this gold from? Uh, my first question when I look at that is, okay, who's going to audit that? In order for me to believe that number, I need to see an outside independent audit of it, vault by vault. Second of all, so eligible gold, apparently, based on that letter that Ronan Manley dug up, that the CME sent to the CFTC not too long ago, where they said, hey, by the way, as much as 50% of our eligible gold category is not really eligible at all, and it may not even be in the vault. So, you know, how much of that gold, that 30 million ounces there, is sitting in COMEX vaults in Delaware or New York, right? I would say there's no way to know, but I don't believe that number is the number. In fact, we know it's not, because there's at least, and I didn't tally it up, but there's probably about 5 million ounces of that is in the form of the enhanced, the bars that are supposedly backing the enhanced 400 ounce COMEX contract. Well, those bars are sitting in London. So if anyone in New York decides to stand for delivery and they get a warehouse warrant saying, oh, here's your 400 ounce London bar, they'll never see that bar.
Yeah.
I suppose they could if they actually took a flight over to London and knocked on the door of whatever vault the bar in, but I would say they'll never see it. So that's you know, again, 17 million of that is eligible. If the CME number is good, that 50% of the eligible really isn't available at all. It's investor gold sitting in other vaults that, you know, and it'll never be made available for delivery. So, you know, subtract 8.5 million from that, and then subtract another 4+ million because of the 400 ounce bars. So that gets you down to 18 million ounces that may or may not really be in COMEX vaults. So that's what I think of that number. It really doesn't mean a lot to me, other than if even a large portion of that number, let's say half of that number is bona fide. Well, the eligible, I mean, the registered account it was at 12 million. So, or 12 and change, whatever. It tells me that if the registered gold is really there and can be removed from the COMEX, that the COMEX is anticipating a run on the gold that can be delivered and successfully removed from the vault at the COMEX.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because you talked last week about how, and a lot of people have wondered, why doesn't China just come and blow up the gold market? And you said, which I would likely agree with, that, you know, as long as they can sit there, get gold at a reduced price, why not get as much of it as you can, which makes a lot of sense. Although I find that situations like these don't often go in a linear fashion. So while that might be the environment now, would you think that at some point, when, if you have, you know, 5 guys standing around there and they're all eyeing it and they're wondering if the other guy's going to go, at some point, one of them finally scrambles and goes for the gold, and then it's all heck breaks loose. And again, to be clear, and I'm learning to be careful the way I phrase things, I'm not saying that we have enough evidence to say that that is happening, but would you say that this, again, is the kind of thing that you might see in that phase of the cycle?
Well, here's the thing. Why would China mess around with the COMEX at all? First of all, China's not going to do anything that gooses the gold price, because they're getting as much as they can at a price that's artificially repressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why would you do that? You know, if someone told you, you know, Chris, I can give you a Porsche 911 turbo cab for $10,000. You do that all day long, right?
Hmm.
So the COMEX, let's just assume all 30 million ounces are in there. That's 923 tons roughly. Well, China imports more gold than that in a year. So they're not going to, the COMEX is like, it's like a sandbox compared to, the game that China's playing with gold. And so that's why China wouldn't go on to the COMEX and like try to squeeze the price.
I hear you. I hear you, and that makes enough sense.
I mean, I think ultimately we're going to see. I don't even know if the market per se is going to reset the gold price. I think we're going to have a full monetary system reset after after the world's had enough of Jay Powell and his digital printing press. So we'll see gold rise slowly over time, which is what we've been seeing ever since gold bottomed in, I think it was early 2001 actually, maybe late 2000, but because I did see gold tick at 250 when I first started in this area. But so we've had a nice rise in the price of gold for 20 years. But I think what we'll see is a continued nice rise in the price, lots of volatility because the price management team's not going to give up without a fight. And at some point, whichever country or consortium of countries decides to do it, you wake up one day and the monetary system's been reset, and they'll reset the price of gold, presumably to create a currency that is backed by gold.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And I know in this week's Mining Stock Journal, which just came out hot off the presses last night, you talked about how we are still pretty early in this cycle for the mining stocks. And I know we have a lot of folks that are very interested in the mining shares. So anything you'd like to touch on there?
Well, just to circle back to the gold price discussion in China, where it will get interesting, in my opinion, is let's fast forward. We've reset the currency system, the monetary system. Gold's an integral part of it, and the U.S. says, well, hey, China, our dollar's backed by. We've got 8,100 tons sitting in the vault. Here, let me show you the piece of paper where it's written, right? Here's the printout of the vault report. So where it gets interesting is if China says, no, but we'll be happy to come over and do our own audit of it. And if it isn't the case, if it is the case that your currency is backed by 8,100 tons, we'll be happy to accept it into our monetary system.
Yeah.
So that's to me was where it gets interesting. But I think we'll be in a world war before that happens. I don't think the U.S. would ever let it get to the point where they get called on for an outside independent audit by, say, the Chinese or something. So,
Well, I couldn't imagine Trump reacting too well to that one. Although, let's leave the war talk aside there just for a second. Going back to what you said, and whenever that is, who knows? Maybe it's a couple months from now, or maybe it drags on a couple years. But when we reach that point where gold takes on some big number, which I think we're in agreement that we don't know the timing, but somewhat inevitable. Just to cheer up all the silver bugs on the weekend. Insert stock if you want, but like one day when silver is $50 or $75, what's the price of First Majestic or a pure silver miner?
I mean, the last time silver hit, well, it came close to hitting 50 back in 2011. First Majestic traded at 25. So I actually think in that scenario, I think stocks like Mag Silver or Silvercrest Metals probably will have a much greater percentage of price appreciation than First Majestic. So, in fact, you brought up my mining stock journal. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it yet or
I
not,
did.
but a lot of a lot of silver investors, silver stock, a lot of my subscribers were asking me about Arcana Corporation, which is renovating and is going to reopen a silver mine in Ouray, Colorado, which is near Telluride. And so I review Arcana and I issue my opinion on it about whether you should buy it or not in that issue. So.
Yeah, I noticed you had that in there because I actually talked with someone from Arcana earlier this week, hoping to catch up with him soon. So I appreciate that journal where you keep people posted on the things in gold and silver picture. Also, the mining stocks. And Dave, before we wrap up today, I would like to point out that, when we first started bringing you on, we would get about 3,000 views. Last week, you cracked 30,000 views, and that means you're officially a 10 bagger. So, Dave,
I guess it's better than being a tea bagger, right?
Congratulations. And in all seriousness, I see the messages and people really appreciate what you share on the show. And I'd also like to thank everybody who's out there watching and sharing this. It was really just nice to see how your audience is growing, especially at this time where people are confused by a lot of things that are going on. But you break it down each week on Denver Dave's weekly silver and gold market update. And folks, in case you did not hear Dave's call last week where he explained what he thinks China is up to, amongst some other fascinating things in the gold market, well, it is coming your way now.